Hi there. Welcome to Livestream Lee. My name's Lee Thurburn, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic. And we have a guest speaker, a guest expert joining us, Tom Meyer. But the topic that we're going to be talking about is what's keeping you back? What's holding you back? What's stopping you from achieving the success that you used to think and dream that you could achieve? Most businesses, most small business owners, when they start their business, they have dreams and fantasies of having a huge business, and that's really common. But unfortunately, the vast majority never accomplish anything remotely close to the dreams that they have. So we're going to talk about why that is and maybe help you identify some of the roadblocks that are in your way and how to overcome them. But that's going to be our conversation today. Before we get started, I want to invite you to go to livestreamlee.com and join our community. Why join? Because everything that we do is devoted to helping your business grow faster, for you to earn more, and for you to be able to retire richer, sooner, and basically just have more wealth. And we do that through the technology and a variety of sort of coaching and educational programs and networking opportunities, but it's really heavily dependent and reliant upon technology. When you join the community at livestreamlee.com, you're going to get an account on Apricot Rocket, which is a powerful digital marketing tool that will allow you to build communities and nurture relationships in a way that is sort of similar to LinkedIn and Facebook, but really significantly different. It's a better way. So go create an account. They're free, and start building communities and nurturing relationships. Before I get into the actual conversation for today, I want to talk about. I'm going to actually turn this off for a second and point over my shoulder at that wonderful, cool-looking shirt right there. That's my corporate swag. I've got some really neat T-shirts that I got and put a logo on to just have fun with branding my company when I'm out and around. And I got my stuff from Bob Hurt, and Bob is with a company named Impressions Unlimited. Bob has been in the corporate branded apparel business for about 50 years, and there's nobody you're going to run into that knows that business better and they can get you a better deal with higher quality products. Go to livestreamlee.com. Click on the right-hand side. You'll see a few buttons. One of them says Bob Hurt. Click on that. Get to know Bob. Reach out to Bob. Ask him for a quote for your own swag, and Bob will hook you up. He's a good guy. All right. I now want to go ahead and start. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you a slide that I've set up where we talk about the essential elements of why people don't become successful. Now, nothing in business is super simple. It can be boiled down to just a simple answer. Anytime you get a simple answer, it's kind of like that onion. You start peeling back the layers, and there's always a little deeper level you can go, and there's a little bit more to it. But I've been doing some thinking and some researching. I've worked with a lot of small businesses. I've kind of figured out what a lot of the stumbling blocks, roadblocks are, the barriers, the obstacles that they don't overcome. And it really kind of boils down, in my opinion, to these things here. And so there's some internal factors and some external factors. I think pretty much all of the internal factors kind of fall under the concept of leadership. And, so leadership, I mean, when you think about it, the leaders of an organization, whatever that organization is, you could be chucking a truck trying to go out and fix roofs or fix do remodeling, whatever it is, you're the leader of your organization, or you could have 1,000 people in your organization. But as the leader, you're responsible for certain things. And first is to know how big you want to be, to have a vision for what you're going to accomplish with your business. And so the desire that you have for growth is probably the single most important factor to determine what your growth and what your size of your company is going to become. There's plenty of people that have a business and don't really want that business to get too big, because when size happens, a lot of responsibilities and headaches come along with it. One of those responsibilities and headaches is employees. And when you have employees, you've got management issues. It's kind of like being a parent. You know, you have a lot of issues dealing with employees that parents understand, managers understand, and a lot of people don't really want to deal with those issues. They also don't want to put in the time. So, you know, you might have all kinds of reasons, and those are perfectly fine for you, but that's probably the single biggest reason that people are held back from having a big business, is because they don't really want a big business. Now, for those that do actually want a big business, I think kind of similar to that is a lack of vision for what that potential future could look like for that business that you have. There's really nothing more important than the vision that you have. Now, that vision can come from your passion or your sense of purpose in life. There's a lot of things that, you know, can kind of drive vision, but a powerful leader of a big company is going to have a strong vision for how the future should look for the organization. So that's next to personal desire, that's probably the next single most important thing. Now, I can't necessarily rank the rest of them in terms of what's most important and next most important and so on, but I think the employees that you attract and the way you handle those employees, the degree to which you empower them and encourage them and support them, the degree to which you hire the right employees to that come to your job, come to your place of employment, and they want to help build something significant. You know, that makes a difference. If they're just showing up for a paycheck, and when it's 5 at 5:01, that card is punched and they're out of there, you know, they're probably not going to really help you achieve your dream. But if you can hire the right people and build the right culture to reinforce the kinds of, in the next line, quality and customer service ethic and that you want, then you're going to really be a major step in the direction of getting a big company. And then, of course, you have to have those things. You have to have a quality product or service. You have to be committed to it. You have to have the processes that are important to be able to deliver that quality on a consistent basis. And then you have to have, you know, a commitment to the customer. Now, I'm not saying the customer is always right, but the customer is almost never wrong. Even when you don't like what the customer has to say, and even when they're rude and inappropriate in how they say it, there's almost always a lesson for you to learn in there. So a commitment to customer first service is a critically important thing. And then, and this is kind of an overarching sort of concept, the concept of a competitive advantage that is both sustainable and significant. There are a lot of companies that have a competitive advantage, but they're neither sustainable nor significant. You know, I used to own some Quiznos, and we had toasted sub sandwiches before anybody else did. But as it turned out, it wasn't sustainable because pretty much anybody that makes sandwiches could get toasted sub sandwiches. So you've got to make sure that the competitive advantage that you have is long lasting and in fact significant in the minds of the audience that you're serving. So those are kind of all internal factors. And then from an external factor perspective, you're not going to typically get a big business unless you have what is commonly referred to as a large addressable market. Now, what does a large addressable market mean? Well, if you have a dry cleaner up in Salina, and you know, it's a town of, I don't know, 15,000 people, and you're one of 3 or 4 dry cleaners in a small market, your business isn't ever going to get really huge because it's a small market. But if you're selling something online and it's a popular product that have a lot of people have an interest and a need in, then you have potentially a very large addressable market. So what's the size of your market? And then what's the level of the intensity of the competition in your market? If your competition is aggressively trying to get into your industry because it's rapidly growing, it's got high margins, it's an attractive industry with a lot of opportunities for collateral growth and revenue opportunities, then it's going to be a market that's going to attract a lot of competition. And that can be challenging. It can, because competition has a tendency to drive prices lower and cut margins. So you have to find a way to be able to go back to that competitive advantage and tweak it and maintain better margins than your competitors and pull more people in than your competitors. So if you can't figure out how to do all of these things and do them well and do them consistently, you're probably not going to have a very big business. You're probably going to be stuck with a business that doesn't reach the dreams and the fantasies of the potential that you saw when you started it. Now, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to bring in a guy named Tom Meyer. And Tom is actually a gazelle coach. I've known Tom for, I don't know, it's a long time, maybe 10 years. It's not that long. I actually had hair back in the day when I first. Longer. There you go, longer. But Tom is a gazelles coach, which is a very respected organization. But like any organization, it's the people, not the organization's name, that make a difference. And Tom has been helping companies in the mid-sized market and larger grow for, I don't know, Tom, how long have you been as a gazelles coach?
Since 2008, and when I started, there was 80 of us. There's now 250 of us, and there's 1 to 3 gazelles coaches in most major cities around the world.
Well, it's a well-respected organization, and it's because of people like you, Tom. So, Tom, weigh in on my introduction. And you do a lot of coaching and consulting with companies that are, well, why don't you describe kind of what your portfolio looks like, and then talk about how these issues impact what you encounter when you're talking to your clients.
Sure. So my particular portfolio typically is businesses that have gotten to somewhere between $5 to $10 million in revenue and are wanting to step up to the next level. So if they're 5 to 8, they want to go to 10. They're 10, they want to go to 20. They're 20, they want to go to 50. So, I mean, and it's really exciting because I've worked with some of the best companies in Texas. So, for instance, one of my great clients was Jimmy Dale with Baker Brothers Plumbing. And most people know Jimmy Dale and Baker Brothers Plumbing. And he called me up and says, hey, can you help me grow from 20 million to 50 million? Because my banker, who had banked my leveraged buyout of the company I bought, had recommended to Jimmy that he needed help. And we did it, and we had fun. And it's so fun to work with an exciting entrepreneur that is being so successful. Another one was Shane Hobbs at Dalworth. And again, people get to hear Shane, see his son on TV. And I'm telling you, when you start with a company, for instance, like Dalworth, and they were around for 25, 30 years, and they were growing, let's say, 5% a year. The first year that I got to work with them, we grew 28%. The next couple of years, we grew 15 to 18%. And now with the virtual Zoom tools, I've got clients in Kansas City, in, Houston, down on the border. And so it's just been a fantastic experience. It's really been one of the best careers of my life. And I say I've been on about 5 careers now. Also, once a year, I do a workshop. I don't remember whether you come to my workshop or not.
I came to one of them, yeah.
I thought you did. And so then I get a chance to talk to many smaller businesses I get a chance to talk to Rotaries. I get invited to speak to a number of smaller groups. So that's not where I'm working, day by day with those people, but I get to share knowledge and I get to share ideas, and I'm really having a blast. Now, I will have to admit that when you were talking and I was thinking about this, I was remembering the decision I had to make when I came out of the nuclear submarine Navy, and I thought, I don't know anything about the business world. I've got to go to business school. And so I went to business school, and I took this course from somebody like you as a professor. It's called Starting New Ventures. And after I took that course, I thought, oh my gosh, this is really hard. I thought, I don't want to go through all that pain. I don't think I could multitask and do all the things it would take to start a new business. So I made the decision I was going to go buy a business. And I did. But I mean, it's really hard. Now I'm going to want to talk about a little bit about how hard it is, because I think people need to know that, but I've also got some answers if they're willing to do the things that cause others to fail. So if you can do the things that cause others to fail, you're successful. And the cool thing about that is, I will have to say that entrepreneurs, by and large, successful entrepreneurs, are the happiest people I know. I mean, I've got a son who owns 6 businesses down around Austin. And he had a chance to go to work for Siemens right out of UT. And he said, Dad, I've worked with them in the summers. I don't want to work in that big business world. And so he said, I want to do my own thing. And I tell you, he's one of the happiest kids you'd ever want to see. So let's talk a little bit about how hard it is, because some people don't know. But for instance, 20%, 1 out of 5, who people who start fail in the first year. 50% of people who start a new business
Tom, are you still with me?
on average, people aren't really profitable. Yeah, I'm here. Can you not hear me?
No, yeah, go ahead
Can you not
and
hear
start.
me?
Go back to 50%. I think your connection dropped for a second, but 20% fell in the first
Okay.
year, and then 50% within what?
5 years.
Okay.
So half of them are gone within 5 years. And then the average of you really getting profitable, and that can either be profitable or cash flow positive, its average is 3 years, which means you better have some cash when you start. And that is one of the failures, is a lot of times people don't have enough cash, even though they're being successful.
Right.
They don't have enough cash. Now, they say that typically, some of the articles say this, success, really where you're sustainable and having fun and you feel guaranteed that this is a good thing, is often 7 to 10 years. So it's hard. Okay. Now, I love the quote from Steve Jobs that says, "I'm always amazed at how over time successes take a hell of a long time."
Right.
So I wanted to share a slide that you have there about what I call going through the valley of death, and taking a look at like 28 million companies are typically how many you've got at any one time. And if you start on the left-hand side, about 96% of those are less than $1 million in revenue. Okay. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of jobs, if you haven't gotten to $1 million in revenue, it's a really hard job where you're working 60 to 80 hours a week and you're having to multitask. And so that's really hard. Now, I don't make $1 million, but as a coach, I have a really easy job, but for most businesses, it's really hard. Then the real milestone is once you get to that $1 million, that's about 4 out of 100. Okay, and that's now you're sort of sustainable. You've sort of got a reputation. You've been there. I mean, you can say I did it. Okay. Now the problem is if you look at that slide, now you go through the valley of death to try to get to 10 million.
So, what is the valley of death? What causes it to be the valley of death?
The valley of death is now you can no longer do it yourself. Now you're having to hire other people to help you. Okay. Now, many of us haven't had other people working for us, or now if you got to hire somebody to sell for you, somebody to keep your books, somebody to manufacture, somebody to maintain, somebody to do customer relations, all of a sudden now you're spending time on managing people and doing things that you've maybe never done before. And the other part of that is you really need to hire people who in their own arena are smarter than you. And that's hard to do. And so that's why they call it the valley of death. And then as you get up to, for instance, 10 million, which is hard to get to, but it's like Jimmy Dale or Shane Hobbs, they've gotten 15, 20 million. They still were having to hire new people. And the other thing that's really hard, you typically are going to have to fire some of your old people or move them down. And that is really hard because the person who can work with you and help you at 1 million probably can't help you do that same much bigger job at 10 million. And that's really uncomfortable. I spent a lot of time having to help people figure out how to better manage those people who've helped them get there. And so that's one of the reasons they call it the valley of death. And if you look all the way over there, you see getting to 50 million, like Jimmy Dale did, there's only 17,000 companies that got there.
Right.
And by the way, he was able to then sell to private equity, although he still retained some ownership. So these leaps of one size to another size to another size, most entrepreneurs can't manage those leaps.
Right.
So that's really a huge challenge. So I think if we look at another slide, I can express it a little differently. If I say, what is your biggest challenge? We've really got 4 different arenas you've got to play in. We've talked about people some, but also strategy. How do you keep getting out there and competing with other people? And what new products do you go, or do you decide to go from Dallas to other geographies, or where all those strategic decisions? And then really what's one of the hardest things is the whole thing we call execution, or making it happen. And the big McKinseys and the big firms, the big accounting,
Accenture, and yeah,
they do those studies, and what they find is 91% of organizations don't achieve their plan for the year. So stop and think about it. That's 9% are successful if they laid out a plan of achieving it. And then the last one, of course, is cash. So there used to be, in the old days, you couldn't grow faster than about 15, 20% and without bringing in outside cash. And those numbers differ as you go from business to business. But that cash issue, and let's face it, most of us don't really know how to manage cash when you get into big time cash numbers. And many of us don't really have good banking relationships. So unfortunately, you got to do all four of those. I mean, that's and any one of those can take you under. So that's what then makes it hard. And then Vern Harnish, who's the head of our coaches, he likes to say there's three big barriers for successful companies who've gotten to $1 million or $5 million that he likes to talk about. So if you go to the next slide and look at those barriers, and he says it's leadership, which you talked about. Okay. The next thing typically is the infrastructure of systems and processes it takes to grow. So both with, for instance, both with Dalworth and Baker Brothers, we had to install dramatically new and better systems in order to keep growing. And in particular, if you're talking about growing 15, 20, 25% a year, you have to keep bringing in new systems. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to do that. And it's very expensive. Okay. And then the thing that you started talking about is the idea of branding, the market dynamics. How do you be different? How do you be better? By the way, I think it's better to be different than it is better, because it's harder to be better than everybody, than your competitors, than it is to be different. And I always ask business owners when I meet them, wherever it is, a golf course, wherever, I say, how are you different or better than your competitors? And it's interesting because not very many have a good answer. And I do recommend everybody be able to answer that question. But trying to do all three of those things is really quite a challenge. And like I said, trying to do those four challenges: people, strategy, cash, execution. It's really, really, really hard. And that's one of the reasons that guys like myself who've done it can have a really good time being coaches, because we've got the tools. Vern provides those tools. I got a tool for almost any problem an entrepreneur has. And I've had the experience of working with Fortune companies as an executive. I've had my own company. I've lived around the world, coached Chinese CEOs in Hong Kong how to do this stuff. And so most of the time I'm able to coach a business owner or CEO on how to get through some of the things he doesn't know how to do. The problem is unfortunately, most business owners and CEOs aren't coachable. They want to do it their way. That's why they're entrepreneurs. The other problem,
there's a lot of ego in being an entrepreneur. That's a lot of what drives entrepreneurs, is to make that accomplishment and get the recognition that comes from it. Money's a big deal, but the respect and recognition that comes from success is, I think, probably a bigger motivator for most entrepreneurs than the money. They want to be recognized for being significant. Respect.
No, I think that too. And I think that if you're a successful entrepreneur, you can feel good about yourself. You can do things your way. You're not susceptible to the politics of either a big corporation, other people telling you what you want to do, those kind of things. So successful entrepreneurs are among the happiest people I know. Now,
Right.
When I do workshops, I always add one thing that people don't remember. There's external risks that you tend not to think about. The biggest risk you have is government. The government can shut you down like that. An employee can make a complaint. My son spent $85,000 in legal fees fighting 4 employees who lied about how they were dealing with my son. The IRS can shut you down. Weather can shut you down. If you get floods, tornadoes, those kind of things, those things can come in. The big guys can recover from that. The problem is the smaller guys don't have the insurance, don't have the cash. And so those sort of unforeseen outside events really make it quite an adventure to go out there and really do your own thing. Like I said, I was afraid to start up my own business, but I'm so happy to see the successes of so many. And of course, being in the United States of America, we have the greatest opportunity of people in the world to go out there and go from nothing to high success. I mean, I've got entrepreneurs who come from families with no education who are big time multimillionaires. And by the way, one of the things that makes it hard about being a successful entrepreneur is many of us don't know how to sell. You know, and that's a hard thing. So for instance, I've got two entrepreneurs, both who are some of the best entrepreneurs I know. One escaped from Cuba at age 9, and he was selling birds at age 9. He was trapping and selling birds, and he's a multimillionaire, very successful down on the border here in the United States. His family came on a rubber raft to get to the United States. I got another one whose dad was a landscaper, and he went to Ohio State, and he's got unbelievable success and money. So, but they know how to sell, and I have to admit, that's not something I knew how to do, and I had to get a sales coach for a year.
Tom, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I want everybody to know that, and this has been a really interesting conversation. We're going to have to do this again next week on Thursday. I think we've already got it on our calendar to do that. So I'm going to have to get together with you to come up with a couple of interesting topics or a good topic. A couple that we've kind of unpacked here just a little bit is how to position for the exit. I'll bet you've done a lot of that, how to position for the exit. And I don't know, we'll think of something else, but it's been an interesting conversation. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the slide deck and just, Tom, what website or how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, look, I think the best way to get in touch with me is just to either call me at 214-632-7291 or
214-632-7291,
right, or email me at Meyer, Meyer 63 at Gmail.
Is it TE like in Edward or TD?
TE Thomas Edward.
Okay,
Meyer,
TE
63 at gmail.com. And you can also do a LinkedIn with me, just like we can with you. And actually, I have actually shut down my website because I found that the Scaling Up website has provided really all the tools that I needed. And one other thing is I do a weekly newsletter that I'm pretty sure you're on.
Yep.
So if you send me an email, I'll give you at least a trial copy of that weekly newsletter that Vern puts out, and then I add my stuff on top of it. And so I've got about 450 people who are business learners who get that email.
It's a good newsletter, folks. I get that. And so you see Tom's information down here on the bottom of the screen. Be sure and send him an email and ask to be on his newsletter. You'll get some great information. And, if you want to give Tom a call, I'd be glad to visit with you and see what kind of see how he can help you. Tom's a helper. That's one thing I like about Tom is he's a helper and he's a smart one. He's a smart helper. All right.
Just a comment. I am going to be doing an all-day workshop at Prestonwood Country Club on June 17th. So if people want to come and get a day of scaling up, they might put that on the calendar, and we'll be putting out that information.
That was Tom, you invited me to do that several years ago, and it was a really great event. So people, if you'd like to get some really good information and a day of wisdom, do that. Tom, thank you so much. We'll see you the same day next week.
Okay.
And appreciate your time today. Okay, folks, I want to close out with one more introduction. We just talked about the exit. There's a guy named Bob Hampton who's a CPA, but more importantly, he's basically a business financial advisor. He focuses most of his attention on helping business owners plan for the exit. And just like Tom mentioned, planning for the exit is a critically important step or stage or thing that you really need to do, because if you don't plan in advance for the exit, and that doesn't mean you're selling to Google or some big company. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to exit, but planning for that exit before you get to that point can have an incredibly big impact in how much how much wealth you take with you after the fact. So get together with Bob or somebody like him. If you don't have somebody like that in your corner, go to livestreamlee.com and click on the Bob Hampton link, and you will get to know more about Bob. And if you want to give him a call, he'll be delighted to talk with you as well. Well, we've gone over a little bit, so I appreciate your time, and I'll see you tomorrow. And again, tomorrow we're interviewing Kent Billingsley, who's the author of, I'm not sure that I actually showed you his graphic, but Kent Billingsley is the author of a book called Entrepreneur to Millionaire. Mark Cuban says it's a must read. I'm halfway through the book, and I'm going to tell you, if you've ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, this is a book that belongs on the same shelf with The E-Myth. It's a great book. It's a book that will change the way you think about how you approach your business and how you approach business in general. So I really recommend that you come back tomorrow and listen to that interview, 3 o'clock, same time, same place. Thank you for tuning in. Bye now.